With the release of OpenAI Assistant's API, it's now easier than ever for small and medium-sized businesses to develop and deploy AI agents. First, I always say that you should not compare them with your own employees because typically you need a lot more agents than you need employees. But even now, you can already significantly optimize your business and scale your operations without raising the overhead costs. However, it's not all smooth sailing. There are, of course, some critical decisions that, if made incorrectly, could set you or your client off track for months. So that's why I wanted to make this video now and answer the 12 most common questions I've been asked about where and how to integrate AI agents in SMBs. Let's dive in. Okay, first question. Where in small to medium-sized businesses would be best to implement AI agents? Yes, this is hands down the most common question, and it seems like there are a lot of misconceptions on that. So a key insight that I've discovered from delivering our agents as a service clients is that there are no two agents that are exactly the same. Even if we develop two accounting agents, typically there is nothing similar between them except for the name. One agent might connect to QuickBooks while another one connects to Xero. Some companies might want to analyze invoice images in Slack while others do accounting weekly or daily. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is that each business has its own unique processes, so the best places to implement AI agents will also be completely unique. There are, of course, some use cases that can be effective for most businesses. We'll talk about them later, but to determine specifically what to focus on in your business, you have to look at the most problematic processes, which gets us to the question number 2. Where will AI agents make the best return on investment for a business owner? So here we consider two things: time to implement an agent and the rate of an employee currently responsible for that process. Time to implement an agent can vary significantly from project to project, which is why I always recommend working with a professional, and this is where AI agent developers come in. Some key factors to consider are the number of APIs that the agent must connect to, complexity of each API, number of custom tools required, and the number of steps involved in the process. The rate of an employee is obviously much easier to determine. The higher the rate, the bigger the return on investment. However, keep in mind that the number of employees currently performing this process also makes a difference. For example, if you have 10 people doing the same task, it's obviously going to bring a much larger return. Okay, question 3. Where could AI automation be implemented in such businesses? AI automation should be placed anywhere where you know exactly how things can unfold. For example, if you know the exact email templates or prompts that you need to use based on how you classify the lead, then it's just an AI automation. However, when there is some decision making involved throughout the process, like if you first have to do some research on a company and then take other certain actions based on the result, then it should be handled with an AI agent. A good rule of thumb is that you can always visualize an AI automation, but you cannot always fully visualize a process for an AI agent. Question 4. What are some universally applicable use cases that yield significant ROI for any types of business? Yes, this is a very common question, and any analytics or information sharing use cases typically fall under this category. You see, every company in 21st century is a data company. Even brick and mortar businesses nowadays have servers and save almost all of your data. So companies that don't make data-driven decisions always fall behind. Not only AI agents can significantly boost your decision-making process, but also information sharing and analytics use cases are typically the easiest ones to implement. All you have to do is simply connect to all those APIs where you store your data, vectorize your documents, prompt the agent, integrate it, and that's it. Instantly, you allow the entire company to make data-driven decisions without having to go through the analysis themselves. Additionally, this is an excellent use case to get started with because it's very easy to build upon. Once an agent knows everything about your business, it can not only analyze the data, but also take certain actions on your behalf. For example, after generating a report or a weekly summary, it can then automatically create Google Ads campaigns or send emails to your team leads. Question 5. As a business owner, where do you focus your agents in your business? Yeah, so we are primarily focusing on developer productivity right now. We buy subscriptions for AI coding tools. We have agents that do PR reviews and even agents that generate initial code bases. We also have agents built on top of our SaaS platform for each specific position in our company that know everything about that position, including all the playbooks, and also can assist with certain tasks. Additionally, we're using some simple agents for lead classification and nurturing, and currently we're also building more sophisticated agents to assist us with project management, because this is one of the highest paying roles in our company. Question 6. How do you customize the agents to align with business needs? You can customize agents in 3 ways. First, by fine-tuning the agents themselves, essentially changing their knowledge, instructions, or actions. Secondly, you can change the integration channels. For example, you can use the same agent in Slack or in a web application. You can connect it to your existing software. Like for instance, you can make it run every time there is a new task in Notion, or even make it a cron job, which essentially means that it will run automatically every hour, day, week, and so on. Lastly, you can customize how agents connect to one another. Most of our clients always start with one agent, but the benefit of using multi-agent frameworks is that later on you can always connect those agents together. For example, once you have an agent for each department, you can then easily connect them together with a manager agent and instantly increase the overall complexity and variety of tasks that the system can handle. Question 7. What are the cost implications for deploying the agents, and how can small businesses budget for them? When considering costs, there are development costs and operational costs. Operational costs are essentially costs that you're paying for the tokens and for the servers. For internal use cases, server costs are almost negligible. This means that token costs are typically the only ongoing costs that you have to consider with AI agents. And so far, we haven't encountered a single use case where token costs couldn't be justified in some way. You see, running GPT models is almost always cheaper than hiring employees. Additionally, there is always some ways to optimize these costs by either running a different model, reducing the amount of context, or tweaking the overall approach. Development costs are definitely more complex and must be considered in advance. Some processes are just too costly to automate, not because of the operational costs, but because it might simply take us too long to create a solution. For instance, if your accountant spends 1 hour per week on bookkeeping at a rate of $15 per hour, and it will take us $1,000 to develop this solution, it will be almost a year for you before you can break even on this investment. Next question, number 8. Can AI agents self-improve or learn over time? Currently, there are no frameworks where this is implemented well or implemented at all. However, I definitely expect this to be the biggest trend in AI in 2024. The memory feature is already available in ChatGPT, which means that it should be coming to OpenAI Assistance API shortly. Once you have memory, we can prompt our agents to remember their own mistakes. This will already be a significant step towards self-improvement. Real self-improvement, however, would require agents to modify their own systems. I'm working on this feature in my framework right now, but it will definitely take some time. Also, it's not as simple as you might think. The agents won't be able to improve without you having to do anything. Self-improvement will require a lot of setup and quite a lot of work on your side, even as a business owner. And we'll talk more on that on question 11. Okay, question 9. What are the steps to ensure a smooth transition when integrating AI agents? Make sure your agents work alongside your own employees by using the exact systems your employees use daily. For example, if you chat in Slack with your data analyst, integrate the AI agent inside the Slack as well. And if you assign your developers tasks in Notion, make sure the agent runs every time a new task is received. For more complex use cases, you might also need to educate your employees on the capabilities of the system and how to use it. Finally, don't attempt to automate everything at once, because it can significantly increase the likelihood of errors and makes the tracking of outcomes much harder. Do it step by step, begin with the lowest hanging fruit, and then gradually build upon the previous work. The best part about agents is that the more agents you create, the larger the impact each agent can make. Question number 10. What are the steps to monitor and maintain the agents to ensure they remain effective and up to date? Agents remain effective for extremely long periods of time. It's a large misconception that once OpenAI releases something new, all your agents will go out of business. For example, switching to Assistance API v2 takes only 10 minutes with my framework, and switching to a new model once it comes out requires us to change only one line of code. Also, if you don't do anything, the system will still keep working as it is. Sometimes, however, external API changes like Google Analytics transitioning to J4 can make your system less relevant, but this happens only rarely. What can really break your system is changes to your own internal processes. For example, if you decide to change some of the software in use or the structure of your database, the agent will probably need to be modified as well. Question 11. What future developments in AI technology should we be prepared for? Yes, so as I said, definitely self-improvement is going to be huge, which is why every business owner should consider developing robust KPIs. KPIs stand for Key Performance Indicators. They are essentially objective, measurable numbers that you can use to track the outcomes of a given process. It's a good practice to implement KPIs for any business, even if you don't use agents at all, although it does take some time. With agents, however, it's going to be even more crucial because for the agent to self-improve, it first has to be able to measure its own performance. The agents have to be able to see how internal changes to the system affect the overall performance on the given process. Otherwise, it's impossible to successfully implement this self-improvement component at all. And finally, the last question, can you show us some successful agent integrations and what were the outcomes? Yes, absolutely. Let's dive into some demos right now. So here's the first example of a very common data analytics and data sharing use case developed for a company called ESM. ESM is a company that helps brands to visualize results and run successful marketing campaigns. What this application does is essentially it connects to all of their internal datasets in BigQuery, and by the way, there are quite a few of those datasets. There are more than 20 different tables, and as you might have guessed, querying those tables requires not just understanding the BigQuery query language, but also understanding the underlying data and being able to clearly interpret the results. So there was before a lot of manual work required in order to extract those insights, but now you can simply ask a question and it will create a query for all of those internal data sets, and if needed, even include any other publicly available APIs like Google Analytics, ArcGIS, Cision, and others. So let's run this first query, which segments have the youngest median age, and see how it works. Awesome. As you can see, we now get this concise and actionable insight directly without having to perform the analysis ourselves. Additionally, because this is completely custom application, what it can do, it can even generate maps and visualize this data on ArcGIS. Let me show you. So as you can see, we now get this visualization directly in the chat interface, which is extremely convenient. You can even browse the map and move around and visualize different parts of the dataset. Later on, this team has also developed individual chat applications like this on our SaaS product for their own clients. The difference between this internal application and those individual external chat applications is that on our SaaS product, those applications only have access to the datasets for that specific client. So instead of querying all of the datasets on BigQuery, it queries only datasets that this client should have access to. What's more is that it can not only query those datasets, but even generate reports based on this data. Let me show you how this works. So now this agent is not only going to query the data, but also run it through this fine-tuned model, and it should output for us a very structured report in the format that this team prefers. Amazing. So as you can see, we now get this nicely formatted report in the exact format that this team uses, so the client can just copy it. We will release a huge update very shortly for the SaaS product with a ton of new features, so make sure to stay tuned. Now let me show you another demo with one of my project managers.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick, a technical project manager here at Arsenii. Today, I want to share an amazing project we just built, the state-of-the-art HTML generation agent. Our client wanted to optimize their operations, boost efficiency, and reduce errors. So they asked us to develop an AI agent that generates HTML from design mockups. Turning design mockups into HTML can be a time-consuming process, often requiring back and forth between designers and developers. Our fix, an AI agent that generates HTML right from image files like Figma or Photoshop designs. Let me show you how it works. Here's the demo Gradio interface. We made this user-friendly interface where you can upload image assets and the target design mockup. Then you set the width in pixels and the agent gets to work. Our AI agent looks at the input images and design mockup, breaks it into parts and generates HTML code for each section. As it generates each section of the newsletter, the interface shows us the progress, and we can see the sections being built and put together. This process majorly speeds up what usually been a manual and time-intensive task. Once the agent is done, we can tweak the result by simply talking to it. We can edit, delete, or merge sections and give specific feedback, like changing the background color, swapping images, or tweaking the layout. As you can see, after some refinement with the agent, the generated HTML closely matches the target design mockup. In short, our AI agent is transforming HTML newsletter building by combining advanced AI, computer vision, and iterative refinement. Thank you for your attention, and now I'll hand it over to Arsenii.
Awesome. So here we have the demo of the Mobeek QA agency. For this case, it's specifically creating unit tests and unit test coverage for pull requests. This, as you can imagine, having a large code base, new code base comes in, etc., can be very time consuming and whatnot. Issue here, just very simple. Develop test for MP3 files. This will be for ingesting MP3 files into the code base. And so let's drop it into the create technical report column. And shortly we will see over here in the Docker container that this has been received and it will start processing. As you can see, the process here that it's going through is it is searching the code base first, updating the user story based on the code it found. That it's going to be like, if it found files specifically for the MP3 files, it would be like user story could be something like user wants to upload MP3 files, you want to ensure that the files get processed properly, or whatever that may be. So here it searched the code base and found these are the most relevant MP3 files, or in this case MP3 file code, but this is the most relevant code to the user query. It does this, and then soon over here we will see a comment appear on this once it has written the technical report to then see what is going on. Awesome. And as you can see, there is the revised user story, and it is now generating the technical report, as we can see in this Docker container. To note, this is also using an Azure deployment of the Assistance API for utilizing this code, and this is a service offered by Azure so that you are able to run the LLM models from ChatGPT on your specific system. So then here we have a technical report of understanding the code base and the user story, introduction, code analysis with code snippets for what we need to do, and the user story analysis and a conclusion of what we will have to do with that task. So now we have the technical report, we can create a test plan. We'll drop it in this column, and we will see over here as it goes through and generates the test plan for this. So this would be something of like, theoretically, if there was a developer that needed to do these tests, it'd be like, here are the tests you need to write, here's what files they need to cover, a very detailed thing, so that then you can hand it off to your junior developer, whoever that will write the tests. This will be very useful for that. So then we will open it up here and wait for this to come in. Then awesome, we have our test cases guide here, an intro, summary of the technical report, and then these are the test cases that we'll need to write. Test get file for audio, validated input, invalid input, empty input, null input, and all these things. So now we have what these test cases should look like in the files they should go look at. So now we can actually generate these unit tests. And this process here will, on this side, create the unit tests, create a branch off of the repo in the Azure DevOps environment to open a pull request with the generated unit test, so that then a user can review them and ensure they are functioning properly. So now we can see we are generating the unit test over here to the right. Awesome. And now you can see that the branch should have been created. So we can take a look here at repos and now look at the branches. And then now we have new developed tests for MP3 files. We can take a look at the branch and see that unit tests here have these unit tests in here using PyTest for that. And now we can take a look at the pull request, and now we see this new automated pull request that has been opened. And you can take a look at the commits here, and commit made by unit test agent here will show that this is the new file that has been created. So then here we have the full flow of you are able to come in, create a new work item about your code base for generating unit test. It'll generate a technical report, generate the test plan for it, create the unit test, and open up the pull request for you, so now that you don't have to handle this all yourself.